Hi,
welcome to
you.
UCJC.
Thank you for having me.
We are very, very grateful to Peter Levine from the Dean of the Tisch College of Tufts University for his visit to la UCJC for the Iberoamericano gathering. Thank you very much for being with us today, Peter.
Thank you for having me.
I'm glad to hear that, very glad to hear that. So, as you know, our university has a wonderful connection with Tufts and in particular Tisch College because some of our professors were there last year doing your civic studies course.
Yes.
They came back delighted, very, very happy with all the things that they learned at your university.
Great.
This connection, at your suggestion, was continued here in UCJC. And today, I would like to ask you some questions about your field of civic studies.
Great.
Okay,
great. And
thank you.
Those professors who visited me are now my friends. So
they are now your friends, yes. And we are delighted to have you. Okay. So, could you explain what civic studies are, how they were born, and why civic studies is different to more traditional fields like sociology or other types of social commitment? Could you explain that to us?
Sure. So we're inventing it. We're trying to build it. So people should feel like they can help to shape it. It's new. There's no reason people should know what it is because it's really new. Started in 2007 with a statement that some people wrote. And then we've built it out with institutes, both in Tufts, the institute that our colleagues from here have come to, but also we do an institute in Eastern Europe as well. I'm going there next. And so what are we trying to do? We're trying to build a new discipline because we believe that in all the array of disciplines that exist, sociology, political science, philosophy, there's sort of a hole, there's a space that needs to be filled. And the space is providing research and education that's useful for citizens who are people who are trying to make the world better, and that this is kind of missing. And so I would just say the content of civic studies is both studying how people make the world better, so it's the research on or empirical research on how people engage in civic life, but it's also an effort to change all of the disciplines, sociology, political science, philosophy, education, to pay more attention to the active citizen and the perspective of the active citizen.
Very interesting.
So those two things.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Civic engagement.
Yes.
Is it something that you at Tisch College teach formally? And could you explain a little bit how you go about that?
Yes, we do. I think we've traditionally taught it experientially, mainly. So what we've tried to do is encourage Tufts students. So Tufts is a full university, and we're a college, but we actually try to encourage all of the students of Tufts to be civically engaged. So I'll give you an example. The students who are studying to be physicians, medical doctors, they have to do 75 hours of community service related to health in order to graduate. So as they're studying anatomy, they're also doing community service and learning about health equity and so on. So that's an example. So for 20 years, the college has had a lot of experiential civic learning where you are civically engaged as part of your studies. Some of it's global, so we send students to other countries. We send students to Madrid. But what we are now adding is this actually classroom learning where we ask students to think and read and do experiments on how people can be civically engaged. So we're actually adding the intellectual component.
Yes, that's wonderful and very interesting for us to know about as a university. Your college, Tisch, is a reference in the analysis and promotion of civic life. What fields of the Tisch College would you think, the work of the Tisch College, do you think a university should develop to generate, if not the same model, similar models or a reference?
Right. Well, so one thing we've been talking about at this institute here is we have developed a kind of curriculum around civic studies, which has some readings and some texts. And I believe those are valuable and have enjoyed working with those with your colleagues from here. But the really creative task is to try to figure out what another curriculum might look like for another university. And particularly, I'm interested in a Spanish language and Spanish Spanish language-based curriculum that would have different authors. So in fact, our syllabus has nobody on it who has a Spanish language background, and so that would be very fascinating to develop a sort of Ibero-American curriculum.
Curriculum and connection.
And it would be an analogy, it wouldn't be identical. That would be good.
Yes, it would. Yes, I know you feel that way from your chat yesterday.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. You yourself, among other scholars, argue that social capital used to be the grounds of American democracy.
Right.
Yeah. Could you elaborate a little bit on that and how civic studies could be a tool for changing that?
Yeah. So first of all, maybe we should say what social capital is a little bit. So it's people's habits and traditions and patterns of working together voluntarily, I would say, in a society. So every culture and every society has some social capital, but it does vary. And within the United States, it varies from place to place, and it also varies over time. And we probably are seeing less in the US than we used to. It's a little debatable. And one of the complications is, do you count online engagement? Because that's much more of that than there used to be. So if somebody's on Facebook, is that social capital? And I would say probably no, but we can debate it. But our research tends to show that more social capital is better, and it's a precursor for economic development and for peace and for human development and better education. And so one of the things you can learn in civic studies is, well, what is social capital? How do you measure it? But also, more importantly, how could you improve it if you don't have it? And the kind of techniques you use are things like community organizing or community building techniques.
Yes. Okay. Could you tell me, Peter, the university student, what role can a university student play in civic life?
I think university student can play a leading role in civic life, and when you look around the world at where social change has come from, it's often been university students. I think partly because they have some advantages. It's basically a privilege to be a university student.
Yes.
In no society is it all that common, and so they're advantaged. They're also typically young, and so they bring a fresh perspective. And I think they're in a position too that they're learning and they're concentrated in campuses. And they have some flexibility about how they choose to use their time. So for all those reasons, students have often been the vanguard. And sometimes not helpfully. I mean, fascism was a student movement too in 1930s in Europe. So they can do a good job or they can do a bad job. And it's our job to help them
make it a good one.
Make a good one, right.
Okay,
right.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Peter. Thank you.